Hello, noble ones, and welcome to Metatron Academy. How tough was it to work in the 1980s? Well, I can kinda tell you that. I mean, not exactly. I was a child, so unless I was involved with child labor, which I wasn't, yeah, I can tell you what my dad complained about. What about the 1880s? Well, I can't tell you anything about that, but this man can. Man born in 1867 talks about working in the 1880s. I am so curious not only to learn from the guy, personal experience and whatnot, but also to see what he sounds like. Let's go. All right, I'll let him speak first and then I'll provide commentary. Let's go.
It was early in July 1881. I was approached by a chum of mine who asked if I'd like a job as office boy with the Western Electric Manufacturing Company, whose office was on New Church Street in the rear of Trinity Church. I conferred with my parents, who thought well of the proposition, although my grandparents had me cut out for a Methodist Episcopal dominie. I'd have been some minister in a small Long Island parish with the possibility of a donation party weekly. Mr. F.R. Wells, manager, the New York office of the Western, offered me $2 a week. I stuck out for 4, was finally employed, and at the end of the
Okay, so we're about halfway through. That's usually what I do. So we let him speak. A lot of things to say when it comes to the... And by the way, the quality of the recording in the audio is actually quite good. Of course, the audio was recorded in 1930, still in the 30s, but still, this is pretty good. So the guy was born in 1867. What do we notice about some characteristics of his accent? The first thing I would like to discuss is his resonance or vocal resonance, which usually in standard English tends to standard, I mean, as if there was one, but mostly common, whether it be RP in England or whether it be general American, tends to be in the middle of the mouth. Now, depending on certain regional varieties, this goes a little bit forward all the way down to the jaw. And in this case, I think it is quite set in the middle, slightly forward. Another thing I'm noticing is that his short O is gone into the A sound. So basically he says dollars, office. Let's hear it again.
received a $5 gold piece
$5.
in my envelope. I must have performed better than I thought. My jobs
My jobs.
offered me $2 a week.
This is a characteristic of Northeastern accents as well in America. I think they still have it in the New York accent, at least some people. The people that do have the accent would pronounce it like that. Let's move to another interesting vowel modification.
The first week,
Foist. The foist week. Once again, a little bit like street accent. Now it's becoming less and less common, but perhaps it was still common all the way up to definitely when he was still alive in the 30s. But I would imagine you could still find it today, but it's usually in very isolated cases now. Yes, so first becomes foist. I love it. Let me double check again his long eyes. Let me see how he says finally.
finally employed,
Finally, so now he has a full long eye. Finally.
1881.
I also find it fascinating that he's specifying 100. 1881. Because of course these days we just say 1881. We don't really put that. I mean, could you imagine someone actually saying 1880? Of course not. But when you're doing dates, I don't know. I kind of like it that he does 1881. It's so accurate. And that's one thing that we may kind of lost. I still say often when I review these. Accuracy and purpose in language is something that seems to be gone. I love the addition of 100 in here.
I was approached by a chum of mine who asked if I'd like
A chum of mine. I imagine that means friend, but I'm not familiar with the word. If you know what that means, do let me know.
a job as office boy with the Western Electric Manufacturing Company,
Good for you.
whose office was on New Church Street in the rear.
So, new instead of new. That's once again a characteristic of, generally speaking, American accents. But it does say Choich. New Choich Street. It's actually adorable, choich. Does he pronounce the T in Trinity?
Trinity Church.
No, it's still, I think, so I think it sounded more like Trinity, but not as much. I'll have to hear it again. Does he have, that's called flapping, the transformation of a T into a soft D, which is sort of Trinity, 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 instead of Trinity. I don't think he fully pronounced the T. Maybe it was somewhere in between.
New Church Street in the rear of Trinity Church.
Very soft.
I conferred with my parents who thought well.
I conferred with my parents who thought well. That was definitely a remnant of the 1800s, 100%. I conferred with my parents who thought well. I love it. You still have a little bit of that in the transatlantic accent as well.
Of the proposition, although my grandparents had me cut out for a Methodist Episcopal dominie, I'd have been some minister in a small Long Island parish.
Long was, in fact, elongated.
With the possibility of a donation party.
So I'm a little confused here because he oftentimes struggles to find his words. I wonder if it's because of old age, because he's reading. I doubt it though, because I don't see anything in front of him, or because he memorized this, rehearsed it. You corrected me. I often say rehearse, but it's rehearse apparently. Maybe he rehearsed it and then forgot, or do you think he's speaking naturally? Because that would suggest that either he's speaking naturally or he rehearsed it and memorized it, but now he was struggling to remember. Sometimes it's difficult to say in recordings that are this old.
Weekly. Mr. F.R. Wells, manager, the New York office of the Western, offered me $2 a week. I stuck out for $4.
I did say $2 a week, man, the economy.
Finally employed, and at the end of the first week, received a $5 gold piece in my envelope. I
believe that would be some kind of coin, right?
Have performed better than I thought. My jobs were numerous up to the time I was elected a director and vice president, in charge of purchases and traffic.
Did you find it? Did you hear it again? Purchases? I mean, that is a word that is usually difficult to pronounce in general for foreigners, for second language speakers. For instance, because I've heard a lot of people mispronouncing it purchase, because at the end of the day, that's how it's spelled. Purchase, but it's purchases. But he did say purchases.
And later, president and chairman of the Graybar Electric Company.
Electric. If you're enjoying this video so far, please take a moment to check out my Patreon page. With as little as a $5 support, you can help us ensure that we can continue to produce high quality and high researched content. And at the same time, you get access to polls, extra videos, unlisted streams, and much more. Thank you so much.
I retired on the 4th of October last under the old age pension scheme. I look upon my association with the telephone pioneers of America with the utmost gratification, which is something I would have you all know.
Which is something I would have you all know. Once again, an expression that sounds really vintage for us. Which is something I would have you all know.
And I've had a wonderful time in the last 50 years, but there's still life in the old man yet.
Good for you, man. Let's have a look. So the channel is called Life in the 1800s. I think we'll be reviewing a few of their videos, also because they enhance, apparently, the video and audio, so that would explain with 60 FPS. That's very good. So, no, yeah, excellent channel. Totally give him a like and subscribe to them. And let's give them some views, shall we? I didn't find any hyper nasality. It wasn't particularly nasal. And of course, the simple fact that this is an old man. There could be some speech pattern alterations. Sometimes they are, in fact, outstanding, even for famous people these days. You hear them speak now and then you hear them speak 20 years ago, sometimes even 10 years ago, and they sound completely different. It's just one of those situations, unfortunately, so it's difficult to really imagine how he would have sounded like when he was younger, both in sense of his accent, but also the production and phonetic aspects to his voice. Still, I would imagine that his accent had already changed. If you go further back in the early 1800s, even within the American vernacular, you would have what's called a trap bath split, meaning that, as it still is in British variety these days, there is a fundamental difference between the way you pronounce words such as bath and dance and words such as trap and cat. This is not a thing anymore in any American accent that I know of. There might be some very obscure exceptions, but in general, bath, dance. I can't even do it, but you know what I mean. Trap, cat, dance, bath, I think is how you pronounce them, without sounding weird, because I do when I try. And as we were discussing, there is no tensing at the end, but I don't think we found any words to notice that, and the lack of tensing at the end, it means words that finish with a Y, for instance, have a little bit of a half a vowel pronunciation, so rather than severity, you sound severity. His accent was also entirely rhotic, so we are in the presence of rhoticity. He pronounced all of his R's better instead of better. I wonder if he would have had intrusive R's. Intrusive R's are those that you place to connect two words with vowels, one at the end and one at the beginning, even though the R is not supposed to be there. When you say, for instance, an idea of. So basically you're saying idea. Yeah. Obviously, do keep in mind that a certain level of regional variation would still be present even in this period, and clearly since he reached the 1930s, it's very likely that his accent had evolved with the time. Anyways, if you find these little analyses interesting, I will make more, and I'll see if I can find something even more ancient, even older than this. Thank you very much for joining Metatron's Academy. Have a good one.